This is Earth Sky Woman Tami Brunk, and I am so excited to be here with you on April 3rd, 2023. I'm going to be sharing with you a transmission today for the month of April 2023. All right, for the astrology, which is quite extraordinary. So first, I just want to start with a little bit of the big picture overview of what the big themes are for this month and the big activations. So number one, just understand that we are all still in a big integration process of the big event of 2023, really, that occurred when we had Pluto on March 23rd move into the sign of Aquarius for the first time in 248 years. This is a really big deal. And so we are all of our systems, all of us collectively and personally, are still in this big moment where we may still continue to feel a bit unmoored, a bit surreal. The world around us might feel like it's rapidly shifting and changing. And so we're still in a bit of that time of integration. We will be, of course, because this is a very, very big astrological event. And so we're going to be integrating it really for quite some time. And of course, Pluto won't move fully into Aquarius until November of next year, 2024. So again, there's going to be this back and forth movement from the late degrees of Capricorn to the early degrees of Aquarius. So we're going to kind of need to get used to this, just this very accelerated shift and change that has a lot to do, on the one hand, with healing, clearing, releasing the very deepest layers of ancestral karma, of what it is that we each carry in our hearts from our own personal lives, as well as our ancestral lines, that wants and needs once and for all to be deeply and deeply presenced, loved, held space for, so that it can integrate, so that in some cases much can kind of clear, so that we can give away or offer or surrender the density that we carry that really doesn't serve the next generations. So that's something that's ongoing, that's just been activated in a very big way. So if you're feeling sometimes very tired or exhausted, or in other moments you're feeling a lot of new energy coming through, then maybe that's what's happening. That, as well as a lot of this interesting all these solar activations that are very big right now. The sun itself is really going through a lot of big shifts and changes, as is our Earth. And so therefore, we ourselves internally are going through really enormous an enormous phase of what are some good words? It's like an eruption energy, an eruption of what needs to be seen, felt, and then a deep settling into the new layers. And really where we're at is emergence, like the little seed emerging out of its hard shell, or like the butterfly emerging from the chrysalis. We're in this moment where we're knocking against that shell, we're cracking it open, where we're starting to emerge into. There are a lot of ways to speak into the changing of this age. We might say the age of Aquarius. We might say moving from the age of separation to the age of reconnection. There are lots of ways to speak to it, but there is a new, fresh energy coming in. So that's just to begin. So number one, there's that integration of the Pluto into Aquarius movement. That's number one that we're feeling already. We're going to continue to feel through the month. Number two, we have the big Libra full moon that's happening 2 days from now. So I'm going to be speaking to that more in detail in a moment. That moon is extraordinary on a number of levels. Then we really have the first 20 days of the month. There's a little bit, again, more of a little more calm, you could say, or there's more of this integration time. But then when we hit the 19th, 20th, that's when we move into the eclipse season for this spring. And so again, we're going to be moving into another layer of this deeper magic mystery, a bit of a cauldron of that eclipse energy. So just know that's coming, as well as then a little bit after that, we're going to have Mercury stationing retrograde. So that's number 3. And so when Mercury stations retrograde, then we also are in more of an inward journey. So with the eclipse and the Mercury retrograde station, we're moving in kind of a time out of time experience in the later part of the month. And then finally, I will say that Pluto is also going to be moving. It's going to be stationing retrograde And so that happens Beltane, proper Beltane, commonly observed May 1st. But we feel it a week before that happens. And so we're going to also be feeling this again at the end of the month, like at the beginning, more of this real deep contact with Pluto. So that's some of the undercurrent, that's some of the major activations for the month. And of course, there are others that I'll speak into in greater detail. So I want to begin with this full moon. We're right on the heels of it as I speak. It's exact April 5th or 6th, depending on your time zone. And here it is for those of you who are watching as well as listening. I called up an image of the chart, and we could see that it's at 16 degrees Libra. The moon is at 16 degrees Libra. The sun is 16 degrees Aries. So we've got this full moon energy. And anytime you have a full moon, the invitation is to learn to balance two particular energies that are in a polarity with each other. The sun and the moon are in signs that are opposite. So the moon is in Libra. This is our first, that's what we're going to be really deeply feeling. The moon transmits in a feeling place. The moon transmits to us most directly. So moon in Libra. And then also we're going to be working with the polarity of sun and Aries. And we've got Chiron in the mix as well. That's one of the reasons why this is a very significant full moon, is because it's a Chironic full moon. So we're going to have the total solar eclipse, or the super new moon, on April 19th, 20th, later this month. That is also going to be a lunar event where there's an activation of a planetary body that we associate with the underworld, or a more shamanic kind of undertone. So here we have the first one. It's a Chironic. Chiron is very much engaged with this full moon. And then the total solar eclipse, or the new moon, April 19th, is square Pluto. And Pluto will be preparing to station retrograde. So first of all, it's important to recognize that even though we are in this larger movement with Pluto moving into Aquarius, where we are brightening, we are emerging, we're coming out of our shells, that there's still this deeper work that's going to be coming through. Sometimes you might continue to feel this dipping into some of the shadowy or some of the deeper feeling layers that are still wanting and needing to be present. So with Chiron, so with this full moon, right now we're really feeling Chiron with the sun. This only happens once a year, where Chiron meets the sun. And it was yesterday, it's the 2nd, when that was exact, but still we're feeling it through this full moon amplified. And Chiron, just to understand, Chiron is the initiator of a great healing. It has tremendous healing medicine. And with Chiron, the healing really has to do with coming into an awareness of the places where we are, where we might feel fundamentally broken, like there's something foundationally wrong with us, and really dropping into an awareness of that and cultivating great compassion for that place within ourselves. And from that place of also radical and deep acceptance of this, what may feel broken to us, we can break open, our hearts can break open into an overflowing kind of compassion and empathy and love and wholeness that comes with this recognition that to be human is not about perfection. To be human is actually about being beautifully broken. And in this time where Pluto and Aquarius and so many other layers are pushing us to try to become in some way perfected, there's something about Chiron that helps us stay human in ways that I think are really important. And I say this also with a full awareness and a love of the ways that we, in our modern society, many of us are always trying to improve and become better and cultivate mastery. That's all beautiful and powerful, and that continues to be important for all of us to empower ourselves, find our sovereignty, grow, learn, evolve. Yes, holy hell, yes to that, all of that. And Chiron helps us also to stay connected to our humble, broken open human heart, so that we are also in touch with our deeper humanity. And this dance between our sovereignty and the places where I'm already whole and complete, and the places where I am really focused on honing and polishing myself. And then the place where we surrender to something a deeper current below the ego. That's a tension that we're all kind of in the midst of right now. But to understand what the polarity of Libra and Aries is about, is to really understand that this is the most personally felt dance between the I and the thou, or it's a dance of the beloved. Truly, with Libra and Aries, there is this polarity that helps us to, it's the places where we learn about who we are through being in fruitful conflict, or well-held places of difference and differentiation between ourselves and another, and the places where that differentiation and honoring of I'm me, you're you, how can I be fully myself, how can you be fully you, the places where we're learning to be in that relationship in a more beautiful way. That's what is at play with the Libra Aries dynamic. So for example, what I've been noticing in my own reality is that for myself, in my personal life, a lot of what's coming through in terms of what's humbling me, what's helping me to let my own heart kind of crack open, are the places where I'm seeing that there is a need for me to step up in some of my close relationships that are very important to me, where sometimes I haven't been a clear communicator, or for example, in my dynamic with my roommate, seeing and feeling the places where I'm learning more, becoming more masterful at establishing what my domain is, what is my zone, what is my sphere of influence, and how do I continue to govern what's mine to govern, while at the same time I am consciously tuning into this other being who I share space with, and connecting and really creating some grace and some compassion and some interest in how can this work really well for you also. And so, this is often that from the Aries perspective, and we both have a lot of Aries is just like kind of coming from a bit of survival when it's in shadow, like I got to find my place, I need to get my resources, I need to forge ahead of the tribe. There's this, like, there is a me kind of feeling behind it, even though that strong sense of me is because Aries is just beginning. Aries doesn't know who he or she is yet. So there's this need to kind of really, this kind of very fiery desire to be who you are, and all hell to everyone else. So for Aries to really learn to be in the community, to really learn to play his or her part, requires the balancing medicine of Libra to help us to learn to connect in a way that's more harmonious. And Libra, when she's really healthy and not codependent, because that's part of what can happen, is the one who actually is well established in knowing who he or she is on the inside, has done a tremendous amount of work to kind of know where he or she ends and where you begin. And that's why the Libra individual, when they're healthy and they know who they are, is the one who's most capable of creating really beautiful, vibrant community spaces or relationship containers where both individuals get to thrive and shine and find how powerful we can be when we come together and we create a lasting bond that we actually tend to and we care about and we communicate clearly within. This is something that I think is increasingly more difficult and more difficult to find because we're quite fragmented. But we've been doing this work of Aries, the Aries Libra dance, for quite some time. It's been a dominant theme. Part of the reason I say that is because Venus was, when Venus was with the sun at Cazimi, or the goddess was on her throne, that was October 22nd of this last fall. Venus was at 29 degrees Libra. So this is a really powerful point, an anaretic point, the 29th degree, or a point of fate, you could say. And this is a really strong so when Venus met the sun at that point, there was this kind of dropping in or planting the seed for this next phase of the Venus cycle. And it had everything to do with opening us up to doing the greater work of fully opening our personal hearts and of doing a full inventory. I feel a little 12-steppy here, but this is very much 12-step territory, the territory of codependence, of learning to honor self and other, the deeper work of that, which is incredibly powerful work for our time. And so 29 Libra, Venus, Sun, Cazimi at that time really made it so that there's been an undercurrent since then, where all of us in some way are trying to come into right relationship with ourselves and with each other in a whole other level. And then we also, of course, have the nodes, the North Node and the South Node moving into Aries and Libra later in this summer. And so this is a big theme. And added to that, we have this interesting experience. And I had only recently was tuned into this when I was listening to astrologer Pam Gregory speak to this astonishing fact that beginning with the Aries full moon in October and now ending with this full moon April 5th, we will have had 7 full moons, all of them in the degree of the 16 degree, the number 16, right? So this is very significant as a pattern. And I find it interesting that the first one was in Aries. And so the beginning was in Aries, the ending was in Libra. So there's this kind of bracketed experience as we were moving into 2023, this epic year, the tipping point, where we've had these full moons at that degree. Why does that degree matter? A couple of reasons. First, it's a Venus number. You know, Venus has an 8-year cycle that repeats and repeats and repeats. So 16 is one of those Venus numbers. But 2, even more significantly, 16 is the number for the Tower and the Tarot deck. And so it has a lot of, in the Western spiritual magical traditions, it has tremendous significance. Now, when I started to dive deeper into this realization and I started to really connect into that and ask, what is this about? What is this Tower medicine about? Well, the obvious is that, of course, the Tower energies have so much to do with what Pluto moving out of Aquarius has been about. You know, it's the completing of this process of the dismantling of the institutions of human society and the inner patriarchal structures that must be dismantled so that we can create a new society and new ways of being that honor each other and the earth. So the Tower can be seen in that way, just as further recognition that we are really in that the heart of this deathing, birthing portal. Another way to see it, and I found this absolutely stunning, is that the Tower, I just learned this, and I've been doing a lot more work with Mary Magdalene. So this is part of why this just came through. But the Magdalene, for those of you who work with the goddess, who work with Magdalene, who have connected with her mysteries as the beloved of Yeshua, Magdala, the town that Mary Magdalene came from, literally means tower. And Mary Magdalene literally as a frequency, as a individual being, as an archetypal medicine, as a goddess, as a medicine that our times call for, as the feminine Christ. Her name literally means the tower, which just when I really tuned into that and heard that, it blew my mind and my heart wide open. So here we have, again, you could say the presence of the feminine Christ, the presence of Mary Magdalene, the feminine that lives, that we each have access to, regardless of gender. She is the spiritual medicine, the spiritual figure who helps us to tap into the wisdom of the priestess, meaning there are so many layers to the priestess, but one is a kind of very strong inner knowing, a devotion to that gnosis, that knowing the self and deeply listening to the intuitive wisdom of the heart and following that path. So the Magdalene, I feel Mary Magdalene is deeply embedded and coded into this time that we're moving through right now. And we're coming to a completion of some deeper work, some alchemy that has been occurring within all of us through this period, and that she has also been present through it. This is the feeling that this is what I have been getting, experiencing, feeling so deeply over this time. So it's a very significant full moon. Between that, as the closing of the 16-degree full moons, and also with Chiron there. Also, we have the sun very close to Jupiter, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we continue to tune into what's happening over the rest of the month. So I'm going to talk about the full moon, and then I'm going to talk about the new moon, and then I'll talk about some of the other activations. So skipping ahead and now I'm going to share the total solar eclipse, April 19th or April 20th, depending on your time zone. This is a total solar eclipse or a super new moon in Aries. This is a very significant eclipse because for several reasons. One is because it's the very last degrees of Aries. Once again, we have this theme. A lot's happening in the latest degrees of the signs, the anaretic degree or the degree of fate, meaning that we are in a moment where there's just a lot, like you could say within those 30 degrees of any sign, you will experience all of the history, the ancestral lineage of the entire human experience of that sign's mysteries. So when you're working with 29 degrees of something, then you have an opportunity to do an incredible amount of healing, clearing, integration of the mysteries that are represented by the sign. Now this is the second Aries new moon. Sometimes you get two new moons in the same sign, and we get that. And that's why it's the very last degrees. So it is a total solar eclipse. Wow. And it is moving us into the zone where we're going to have this, the shift from the nodes from Taurus Scorpio to Aries Libra. So the North node is going to move to this degree of 29 Aries later this summer. Okay, so this is not only is it opening the eclipse portal, it's going to be active for the next couple of weeks, but it is also going to be, it's activating the very potent 29-degree 52nd Aries point. So let's talk for a minute. What is Aries? What has been the full and complete human experience of the Aries archetype through time? And then we have to look at the bones of the sign. Libra is, like I'd mentioned before, with 29 degrees Libra, Venus was at that point. Libra is about relationship, is about the personal bond, is about the connection. And Aries, in some ways, is about where that connection is sometimes severed in order to individuate or differentiate. That's one of the facets of Aries. Aries emerges from the oceanic depths of Pisces, where all identity is dissolved into the oneness, into the unity. So Aries has a strong, fierce desire to be, to exist, to take up space, to be, to have the right to exist, to create a path in the world. So Aries has a lot of strength, a lot of courage, a lot of vitality. And rightly, when its medicine is directed toward creating the new pathways and the new original forms, and is put in service to clearing the way for the rest of society to follow, then we can see that as one of the layers of Aries that's highly beneficial. We wouldn't have, Aries is a doer. Aries makes things happen. Aries initiates. Again, Aries is like that, the fire that lives inside of the seed it's the encasing of the shell that's so strong and powerful. It's such a strong will to be that it busts out of that cage. So we need Aries fire and courage. Aries is the warrior. So, and Aries can also be the guardian, the one who is so fiercely guarding and protecting what's precious in the community, in the tribe. So it can be also the one who restores the cosmic order. In a time that we live in like now, it is the Aries style of goddesses, the warrior goddesses like Durga and Sekhmet, who are called onto the world stage to devour what's out of balance, and or to fight the demon brothers in the case of Durga. So to do battle, to do spiritual battle on some level in a time where everything is distorted and out of balance, to bring the world back into harmony and balance. That's what Aries in its highest is in service to. So when we look at Aries in all of its facets, there's so much more to say, but I will say that the shadow of Aries also has been incredible violence and war. And that is, conflict for conflict's sake, and the kind of warrior societies that gave birth to our modern age. So when we're looking at this eclipse, what does that mean for this eclipse? Well, from my perspective, if you look at it in terms of, what's going to happen, well, we don't know, but we can imagine that there is the potential when we develop our ceremonies, when we set our intentions at this supercharged new moon, we can be setting an intention that we are fully releasing and relinquishing whatever facets of our own individual being, or that of the ancestral lines that live through us, spiritual or blood lineages, that have an addiction to violence, to conflict, that have an addiction to putting the needs of the individual over the needs of the collective. Wow. And even as I say that, it's like, that's a hard thing for me to say, because I'm someone who also deeply believes in that we need greater sovereignty, greater differentiation, greater individuation. We are in a time where we're needing that. We are still needing that. However, the degree to which we as a human species have individuated and differentiated ourselves from the rest of the creation has come to that final degree of fate where we must allow the tipping point to occur, where then it moves into the realm of Taurus. So that's a magical zone when you have 1 degree that shifts into a new one. So where are we moving from that degree? When we fully surrender or maybe dissolve the old Aries, our attachment to the old Aries energies of I've got to fight to survive, tooth or claw, Darwinism, late stage predatory capitalism. These are some of the energies or frequencies of violence. It's really about violence that is birthed from a sense of fear that I won't survive unless I am coming from this place of just very primal, and I mean that in a way that's feral, that's been wounded, that's traumatized, and that doesn't recognize that true survival only occurs when we are woven into the fabric of the whole. So my sense would be that we can know, interestingly, that the moon is going to break within minutes, 20 minutes of the exact new moon. The moon will have broken away and moved into Taurus, and very soon after, within not that many hours, the sun will also have moved into Taurus. And that's how it works with the Antarctic degrees. You've got this moment where you can really we can each be a part of that dissolving, surrendering process, but then we can also feel this kind of relieving of the tension as we then drop into what comes next, which is Taurus. And Taurus, if we heal the wounded warrior's hearts, not if, when, and when we are dropping into more of the kind of trust or awareness that we're always cared for, and then we can bring down to its original essence the Aries fire that is really the original spark that says, yes, I'm here, I'm alive, I'm excited about this. Then we can move into the zone of Taurus and the beginning degrees of Taurus, which is really the garden of earthly delight. It's a really powerful shift. It's very different energies, but Taurus knows she belongs. Taurus feels like she's in the garden, and it's a very beautiful, full of pleasure, fully present, trusting the material realms, and that's what we get to drop into as we shift. Now I'm realizing I actually wasn't sharing my screen for those watching. But yeah, we have this Aries total solar eclipse, super new moon. So when you plant your seed, let those seeds first of all be planted with the deep desire to surrender the places of violence against ourselves. First of all, where do you hold violence against yourself? And then where am I also holding frequencies of violence against other people, places, experiences? So we get to surrender that to move into the zone of Taurus, a more peacemaking energy as well, and a more grounded and earth-loving medicine than distorted Aries. Okay. All right, so that's that solar eclipse in Aries. And is there anything else I want to say? I think that that's the most important piece. And now I'm just going to talk about some of the other pieces of what's going on. As I speak today, actually, Mercury has moved into the sign of Taurus. And so Mercury moving into Taurus means, and I can feel it personally too, it's like, okay, there's kind of a slower dimension in the way that the mind is operating. So Mercury in Aries, the mind is operating very quickly. It's trying to make a lot of things happen, slowing it down again. So as I speak, I'm already in that, wow, interesting movement from Aries to Taurus. So the mind in April is downshifting so that our mind itself is actually taking us into the territory that the total solar eclipse is going to be forging into on April 19th, 20th. And right after that, actually, Mercury will be stationing retrograde. So it's an exciting time, again, in the way that the mind is going to become more embodied. The mind is going to drop down more into the body, and it's going to be getting her directives from the body, because also Mercury retrograde is more of a yin or a feminine experience. So that is also, so again, Mercury in Taurus is about bringing the mind, bringing the consciousness down into the sacred holy body, bringing the consciousness down into the earth so as to savor, enjoy, and be deeply, deeply, fully present with this earth realm. So we don't need the speed of Aries. We don't need the overpowering, very active Aries medicine anymore, because the earth has already been opened. The seed casing has already been cracked. The chrysalis has already been opened. So now we get that, I'm also thinking of the butterfly often when I think of this. She's wriggling out of her shell, and she's very slowly kind of fanning her wings, taking her time, gaining her strength. With Taurus, the little seed, the little plant has burst through the soil. Now it's receiving the medicine of the sun. Now she's just receiving. So our mind gets to receive the new codes, the new medicine, the new wisdom is coming in. It's waking us up. So we get to open our minds, our consciousness to what's new, what's coming in now, and what feels good. So we get to also focus on that. There's a huge benefit and beauty in truly asking what feels authentically good in my body, in my life, what makes me feel grounded, what helps my body to breathe and relax when I have this thought, or when I take this action, or when I tune my mind to this reality what reality is it that helps my whole body to relax and feel like it's safe to be here. So the things that you want to do now are things that help you feel safe to be here. And the mind herself, especially in Taurus and also retrograde, is helping us learn to receive the new messages, the new directives from a more feminine, yin, and trusting state of being. Okay, so we have all of that. Now I'm going to back up for a minute, since I've talked about some of the biggest movements for this month, and then I'm going to backtrack a little bit to share some of the less, some of the smaller but also very significant activations. So some of this has to do with kind of an undercurrent. I think of it as an undercurrent of what we're moving through. And one of those is that Jupiter is now has moving into the beams of the sun. And so really through April, Jupiter will not be visible in the morning or evening sky. So we'll have Jupiter really also in this process of kind of like Aries moving into Taurus. Jupiter has been, in the evening sky, in the sign of Aries, just bright, fierce, fiery. And now, as it's in the beams of great mystery, it's going through its own kind of metamorphosis, or a deeper kind of a down and in experience of metamorphosis, of death, birth. So even this fiery planet of Jupiter every year goes through a process of coming home to the sun. When I say coming home to the sun, this life is filled with riddles, but when a planet is in the beams of the sun, it, from our perspective on Earth, it's having a death birth experience. So there's something that's dying to be reborn. Like the new moon is the time where the moon is with the sun, and we can't see the moon in the morning or evening sky. And so there's this, it's the dark moon. It's a time of deep inward reflection. So there is some of that undercurrent this month with Jupiter and the beams of the sun. Jupiter is very expansive, exuberant, very flamboyant energy. So there's some of that that's being pulled inward. So, and also I would say that has to do with the movement from Aries to Taurus. If you just live in Aries all the time, you're gonna burn yourself out. So once all that energy is expended again to crack through the shell and through the hard earth, then you want to slow down. Then you want to start to move at a much more organic pace as you continue to grow and evolve. So this is what we're invited into this month. And also I would say, because Pluto is stationing retrograde May 1st, that's traditionally observed Beltane. And we're going to feel that even the week leading up to that. So the last week of April, we're going to start to feel that deeper, again, this downward pull with Pluto retrograde. Anytime a planet's close to the Earth, you really feel its medicine. It's a very Plutonic. And I feel Pluto as just a deep pull of gravity, of just like a really, coming down and in. Also, something I'd actually missed, I hadn't spoken to, is that with this total solar eclipse, or the super new moon on April 19th, 20th, that moon is also squaring Pluto. So that is going to be kind of an intense full moon. I will not, this is clear. It's going to be an intense full moon. So I would take the time to create ceremony around it for deepest transformation in your life. And really just create space around it to feel, create space around it to do a lot of the deeper inner work, to do some shadow work, to allow yourself to really be with what is. I would really take the time out on those days. You don't want to just be rushing around unconsciously on those days. You want to be taking some space to be intentional. It doesn't mean you have to create some big ceremony, but I would create space around it so you can meet whatever it is that's coming up with as much coherence as you can, as possible, because a lot's moving through, a lot's being cleared in that time. Okay, now what else is in the field is that we have, of course, Saturn's moved into Pisces. And so Venus is going to be squaring Saturn also earlier this month. So that's kind of again, an energy of, in a sense, refining. Or when Saturn squares a planet, it's like, okay, it might feel like a contraction, but it's actually helping us to refine or bring into greater resonance or in greater mastery, whatever that planet is experiencing. So Venus is moving into, and that takes us to Venus. So I want to talk for a moment more about Venus in general, where Venus is at in the sky, what she's up to. So as I begin this transmission, April 3rd, she's in the sign of Taurus, but she very soon will be moving into the sign of the of Gemini and also activating the Pleiades on April 10th, 11th. And so then she's going to be, moving into a mutable sign. So the feminine herself is going to be moving more into the territory of play, of creativity, of self-expression, of the awakening the inner child. But also she's going to have Saturn squaring her and early on. And so that also is kind of this structuring or helping the feminine Venus to ground something, maybe ground the new story. Maybe there are a lot of ways to look at that, but it also happens in the larger window where Venus in Taurus was activating the heart chakra gate. That happened in March 24th, is when Venus and the moon came together, activating a month of heart energy where it really serves us if we want to be directed by the feminine to drop into our hearts and to be in a process of strengthening, fortifying, and claiming the strength, the power, the potency that lives within us when we center ourselves in this part of the body. And I would also say it's important for Western minds, Western individuals like ourselves, to also acknowledge when we root ourselves in the heart, we must also be occupying and very alive and present in the womb, the lower centers of the body. We live in a time of great integration, and so it's necessary to balance the energies of the heart with the lower chakras. And that's why in this Venus journey, Morningstar journey, before she activates the heart, she will already have begun the process of fully anchoring the root, the sacral, and the solar plexus before she gets to the heart. So it really is for all of us to be doing the practices. We need this, that really help us to ground down and be deeply connected to the earth and her mysteries, even as we're in this kind of more expansive cycle where now we're moving from the heart chakra in the Venus evening star cycle. And then on April, right after the eclipse season begins and all of this, that Venus will be moving through the throat chakra gate April 23rd. So that will open a month where then the deeper feminine layers, the deeper feminine work is about speaking our truth, is about full expression of the self. And that really does correspond with the Gemini, Venus and Gemini in a really beautiful way, because she will remain in Gemini for a bit longer. So, but until the 23rd, it's the heart chakra activation that we're working with. Just to know that. Okay, so then we also have had Mars move into Cancer after about 7 months, from August 2022 until March 2025. Mars was in the sign of Gemini, and now it's just moved into Cancer. So it's in that sign. And it's going to actually also be squaring, Mars is going to be squaring Chiron close to the end of this month, even close to the time that Pluto is stationing retrograde. So once again, I mentioned this before, we have the full moon opening the month is with Chiron. The total solar eclipse is squaring Pluto. As Pluto is stationing retrograde, we have Mercury stationed retrograde as well. We have Mars activating Chiron. So as you can feel, there's a lot of this bright new spring energy as we're bringing forward. There's Taurus that's blessing us, that's helping us slow down. And also with Chiron and Pluto, with that medicine, again, it pulls us down in some way. And so that we are able to restore ourselves. That might sound like a strange thing to say, but my sense is that Pluto and Chiron, the underworld initiators, are a tremendous gift because they help us to, again, just to be fully in the body, fully in the feeling, and helping us to transform at the deepest levels. These are shamanic initiators. They are underworld initiating planets. And so they help us to also be deeply rooted in the earth. They also help us to connect to the dark feminine. And my sense is that with so much of the Aries energy in the field that's been causing us to move forward very quickly, and also with Pluto now moving into Aquarius, and so in a way there's more of an energizing of the higher spiritual mysteries, that we need that counterbalance of the deeper rooted feeling tone that we are provided with this very strong Chiron and Pluto energy. Also, Pluto is squaring the nodes. So this is also part of the underlying energy of right now, is that my sense is we are truly being supported in some level with the deeper healing, clearing of the density. I love the way that the Quero peoples of Peru see this. They see the heavier, they look at dark light, heavy light. They think of these things in more neutral terms. The more advanced spiritual elders see it this way. They, for example, where we might speak of trauma and we might feel trauma in the body as a kind of a heaviness, or we might feel and know it as something we want to let go of and get rid of and clear and release. But we might ascribe, like say that feel it as a bad thing, you know, like I've got this ancestral trauma. We might put a lot of judgment on it. From the Quero perspective, it's just very simple. It's like, well, we have this, I think they call it what do they call it? It's like it's a hucha or something like this. Maybe I'm saying this incorrectly. For those who know, tell me please. But I love this idea that it's just the dense energy that we have in our systems that we just accumulated. And so very regularly we just give it to the earth, and the earth takes it and makes life force out of it. But this isn't good, bad. It's actually part of what we do, is we give that waste to the earth, much as we do our, much as any of our waste is given to the earth and made into new soil, that our heavy energy is the same. So we don't need to judge it. We just need to be in a regular relationship with the earth, and maybe even literally consciously, if this is the way you work, like giving what feels heavy in your body to the earth so she's got food. It's a very beautiful thing. And that the nectar, the fine refined nectar that comes from the heavens, it can come down into our bodies. We give that to the earth also. But and then we receive the nectar of the earth coming through our body. So there's a sense that I feel often that when we can begin to experience all of these cycles, in a sense, as almost feeling the pleasure. Can you imagine feeling pleasure in a Chiron cycle or a Pluto cycle? Can you imagine Saturn experienced as pleasure? Now I'm speaking from the perspective of Venus and Taurus, right? So, because as I speak, Venus is in the sign of Taurus. So these are some of the invitations, and this is some of the map of what's happening over this coming month. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please let me know. I want to actually end with a reading, because to me it feels wonderful to open this month with a reading of something that really, to me, feels like I'm speaking from the heart of Venus herself as she's at the heart chakra gate. In the sign of Taurus, it feels like good medicine. This is one of my favorite books, Ishel Wisdom by Shonag Home. And even though Ishel is a moon goddess, she also has some connection to the Venus mysteries. So here's the transmission. You might even close your eyes, put a hand on your heart and on your belly center or your womb if you're female, and take this medicine. And it's so sweet. All right. This is about beauty. The beauty you exude from within and the beauty you surround yourself with. My dears, the goddess radiates great beauty everywhere she walks. Your piece is to create it all around you. The beauty of your heart is the first place you can start. Clear away the energies that cloud the light of your heart. Clear away the energies that cloud the light of your heart. Put your hands over your heart chakra and send healing, love, and laughter. Think of these as little house cleaners going in to sweep away what doesn't have to be. Then feel the radiance beam out through your hands, filling the entire space with the beauty of your heart. In this way, you have just created great beauty all around you, and it came from your own heart. You can do this anywhere you are. If you are in a place that is ugly or depressing or scary, do this special thing. First clear around your heart and then beam it all around you. You will see that everything will change. So, sounds very simple. And I do feel often that in these times, we are being made new. We can change. And sometimes the simplest and most heart-centered, oriented wisdom, inner knowing, experiences and relationship are to be really honored and dignified and present. So may you have a beautiful month. So much love to you, and happy April 2023.